Hello. I wanted to do a tutorial on how to make a hex-based board game. I'm actually working on my first, and I found it's kind of hard to actually find good tutorials on this to do in Unreal Engine. So I thought I would do one myself, and as I continue to develop, kind of show some steps along the way to replicate it. And where I want to start today is just how to kind of get a basic map. What you'll need for this tutorial is Unreal Engine 4. This will work on Unreal Engine 5 as well, and all the steps should be pretty much the same. I just have Unreal Engine 4 already installed for another project I'm working on, so don't want to flip over yet. But 4 or 5 would work. And then Blender, which is a free modeling software, looks like this. We won't have to do a lot in here, but just make some of our basic models. And that will be it. And what I want to do today is just we'll make the tutorials, get the basics down, how to generate a map, and then we'll pick it up from there in the next video. But I'll do this alongside you guys in a new project as well. So doing this fresh, I'm just open up Unreal Engine, go to Games, hit Next, and we'll take the third person tutorial or template, but we really won't use a heck of a lot out of it. Then hit next, make sure you're on blueprint, desktop console, maximum's fine. Do bring in starter content just so we can take some of the materials and such through there, and then call it whatever you want. I'll do HexTile tutorial and create the project. Bring this over to another screen. Give this a sec to load. Okay. All right, so you should have been taken here. The first thing I want to do is clicking this button right here, and it pulls up this little drop down, and I'm actually going to create a folder, and I'm just going to call it 1A main. This is where I just like to put all of my stuff. And I do 1A, so it's right at the top. The first thing we'll do is make a new level, and I'm doing my my game is going to be, you can do 1-on-1, 1v1v1, or 4-player free-for-all. And I'm setting it up first for 4v4, so I'm just going to call it 4x4. And then I'll make different levels for different players and such, but for this purpose, we'll do this. So we'll open that up, and before we do anything else, if you're new to Unreal Engine, we'll make this our base loading map. So go into your project settings and maps and modes and editor startup map 4v4, 4v4. And now whenever you open the editor, you'll be here. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come into landscape. So modes, landscape. And let's kind of come up here. And because you have the starter content, you should have, if you type in water under material, this ocean. So I'm going to replicate it to kind of look like this. So I like this ocean background, so that's what we're going to do. So we'll do that, and we shall create. And then you can go back to mode, select, and now we'll do lighting. So Unreal Engine has this, if you go to place actors, BP sky sphere, I'm going to bring this in and gives you some clouds and the sun and everything, so pretty nice. And then we're going to bring in a directional light. And I'm going to make a folder right away. Just call that lighting. And we'll drop, oh, that's already in there. We'll drop this in here too. And then with your BP sky sphere selected, grab your directional light. And now with your, and I'm going to do one more thing and move these all to 0, 0. We'll do 800. And then the directional light, I'll move this to 0, 0, 700. Location doesn't matter, but I just want everything at the world origin. So within your sky sphere, with this directional light selected, you can see the sky sphere has a sun, and now it will move off this. So if we were to move this all the way over here, you can see the sky hasn't moved, or the sun hasn't moved yet. When you come back to your sky sphere, hit refresh. Now it moves it over. So kind of nice. It moves the sun to where your directional light is coming in. And it just kind of looks good. I'm actually going to kind of move it over here a little bit and a little bit more. Oh, whoops, not the sky sphere, directional light. Move this kind of like this, and then a little bit more up, down, so it's a bit brighter. and then we will refresh this. Okay, so now we have a world to place our tiles in, but we actually have to make them. So I'm going to pivot over to Blender. These are some of the assets I've made for the game I'm currently working on, but I'll show you how to make them. So when you're in Blender, if you're completely new to it, no problem, we'll walk through it. So the first thing you do is Shift A. So hold Shift, press A, hover over Mesh, and then grab the cylinder. And when you do that, yours will probably look a little bit different than this. I think it starts at 32. Just switch yours to 6 vertices, which is what I'm doing, so it gives it 6 sides. You could do this with 5 if you wanted, but I like 6, and it kind of lines them up perfectly like this. Obviously, as you go vertical, it'll go in the center. You can do this all with 5. That's completely fine, just your preference. But for me, I'm going to do 6, and then my spacing will all reflect that. So we have this set up, 6 vertices, and we're going to change this stuff later, so we're good. From here, you can click it, and I'll show you guys the dimensions I'm using, just so as we space it on the map, that can be the same. So you can see mine, and it's going to look a little bit different than yours, but we'll get there. My outline is 4.15 by 4.15 meters. So when we come back into here, 4.15 and 4.15, and you'll notice the scale is changing. So to change that, click on the sphere, do Control A, so Control A, and then do all transforms. And the last thing we'll change is our height to 0.315. 0.315. And then lastly, we want this to get lined up on our x-axis. So we're going to rotate it 90 degrees. So now the corner here is lined up perfectly with the x-axis, and the y-axis intersects it. And again, we'll do Control A, apply all transforms. So now we got a good little tile. I like to give it a little lip like this, just so when you're actually looking at it, there's some height. So, and now we're going to break it up a little bit. You don't have to do this. This is preference. But the reason I did that, let me bring this back to center, is I kind of have this base outline. Oops, bring that down. And I like to then kind of put what the landscape is. So there's really a bunch of different materials here, but there's this edging material, a material kind of outline, and then the material that your tile will actually look like. So what that looks like in game is I kind of have this, earth tile edge, which I like the look of. And then I have this outline here, which the way I'm going to do it is when a player moves one of their characters onto this tile, I think it'll change the color, tint it to their team color to kind of show that you own this tile. And then this, this desert grass, this is obviously the main material. So let's move this all back. So that's why I do it that way. You can skip this. You can have it just be grass or desert or snow or whatever it is you want. But I'll do it that way so you guys can see it. So with it selected, when you hit tab, you go into edit mode, which is also up here. So but default we're in object mode, go to edit mode, and then click this button here. This allows you to select faces. So we're just going to select this top face. And then we'll delete that. So delete faces. And we're going to go back into our vert select. So I've got all these. So grab these. Whoa. So grab all 6 edges. And then to kind of make this little outline here, what you'll do is you'll press E and then right click. So E extrudes, it duplicates the point essentially. And without doing anything else, so do E, right click, that sets it back to right on top of the other. When you press S, you change the scale. And we're just going to drag it in a little bit. So I'm just going to do just a little outline here. And now these verts are all still selected. Press F, and now you have a face. So we're going to do a couple things here. Now we're going to make some materials. So let's call this like, I don't know, main. Add another one. We'll call this top edge. And then we'll add another material, and we'll call this edge. Maybe you want to get a little bit more creative than me, but so we'll go back to our face select, grab the top, and we'll assign this to main. So with main, assign with these faces, grab these, and top edge, assign, and then with all of these, and I'm holding control and clicking. That allows me to multi-select. We'll grab edge and assign. And we have this bottom one here. I'm going to leave this, and I'll just do edge as well. You could delete this though if you wanted. So we'll get out of edit mode, come back into object mode, and if you click this, so you might by default be on this setting, which doesn't have any colors. You click this one, viewport shader. Now you can see some colors. I'll show you guys how to actually download some materials later, but I like to at least just kind of set the basics. So we'll grab this one, kind of do like a blue-green for main. Our top edge, let's just do like red. It doesn't matter in here. And then for this edge, we'll grab like purple. So now we can see we have some different materials. And that would be the basics. As you can see, I've made like some low poly trees, and this is like a capture point. I got some mountains, like a farm, little castle, a mine over there. You guys can create obviously whatever you want. So with this created, you can select it, file, export FBX, and I would recommend creating some different folders. So I have a Blender folder, board game assets, and then I have my tiles in here. When you do export it, actually we already went that, hit cancel, go into UV editing. Yeah, go into UV editing. When you're in here, hit tab and then hit A. So you should have everything selected, and just hit Smart UV Unpack. The way this works is, let me see if I can just kind of show you. I think it was not grass. Where did I have that? Yeah, so this picture here is a texture. And so the way the UV map works is this face will be this part of the picture. So if you wanted this to be bigger, we just did it quickly. I just did a Smart UV Unpack, boom. But you could do it face by face. So if you wanted this to be, to cover the whole thing, you could kind of move it out and scale it across or whatever. We're actually going to use the textures and materials within Unreal Engine, but this sets up how it will look, the UV of it. So that's how you do that. I usually bring in a texture that I might use something similar to it, but at least to kind of get my UV right. This unit color is actually for my little ponds here I made, just to give them, a little bit of characteristic. But we're going to switch this back over to main and assign. So now that we have our UVs done, come back into our layout, grab this file, export FBX. I'll put it into my folder. I'm going to use the tiles I made for this demonstration, but I'll import this one with you guys. I'm just going to call it new tile and do selected objects only. All this is fine. And the other thing we need to do for Unreal Engine is, I think it's, smoothing. So this is closed, hit geometry, then there's smoothing, face, and then hit export FBX. So now when we come back into our new project, I'm going to make a couple folders in here quick. So call this one maps, and we'll drag this guy into there. And we'll do another one, call this assets. And within here, we can do tile, mesh. And then within here, right click, import. And let me pull this up. Blender, no, where are you? Unreal Engine, Blender, board game assets for me, new tile. And I think we can leave all of this as default. Actually, I'm going to do not create materials because we'll do that separately. And now you should have a tile, and you should have some different material slots. So we have the main there, and the top edge, and then the actual edge of it. If you're wondering, well, why is it invisible? It only shows the outside, so when you're actually looking at it, it's fine. It's just a little performance thing that Unreal Engine does that the insides don't need a material because you'll never be able to see it. So that's why it does it that way. If you imported it and you got some errors, I forget what they're called, but there'll be like 3 red lines that pop up in a debug menu. It's probably because you forgot to export it with smoothing or you didn't unpack it. So that's how you fix that. So we have our tile now, and we'll just create a couple quick materials, and maybe in the next video I'll show you guys how to use Quixel Bridge, which is pretty nice, but we'll make some basic ones here quick. Tile color. So here's our material. If you hold down 3, left click, brings up this 3 constant. You can also search it. 3 constant, yeah, constant 3 vector. So this will be our color. Grab that here. And actually I'm going to do something called make this a parameter. So let's call this color. And this will just quicken the process a little bit. And then if we add some things later, we can. So this tile color selected, we're going to create a material instance. Let's call this tile green, and then click this, Control W to duplicate, tile gray, and tile brown. Select all these, open them up. So with that parameter, come here, click. So this one we're going to do brown. So we'll do something like that. And I think I'll do that in the next video, show you guys how to get some better textures for materials. But here's our green, and let's do a gray. So making the material instance is nice. Obviously we're only using base color here, but if we get into some stuff where we use metallic and roughness or emissive color or whatever, you can do it all here in the base material and then edit it in the instances later, which is nice. Okay, so with that done, let's come back to our tile quick, and let's just assign some colors so it looks a little bit better. Is it green? I think I want this to be gray and tile brown. You can obviously do whatever colors you want, but just to give it something. And when we come back into it, we have a tile in the game. So next thing we're going to do is within our assets, we're going to create a actor. I'll pull this up to the side. So right click, blueprint class, to an actor. We're going to call this BP tile grid manager. So this will be what actually populates our map. And we're going to do one thing first. I like to do this in Excel. The reason for it is I'm just really comfortable in Excel, and I think it gives you a lot of customability, and it's really easy to actually implement. So let me pull something up. The way I like to do this is I make a kind of a master Excel sheet. So tile, Excel, and then we're going to make a CSV, which we can actually import into Unreal Engine. So create a little Excel sheet quick. And the reason I like to do this in Excel is you can only bring in a CSV into Unreal Engine. You can actually bring the Excel sheet, but I can kind of do some conditional formatting and some other stuff within Excel just to help me kind of keep track of things, and then bring it into the CSV nice and clean, just to import it in. So the only thing you guys will need is row name, material, and index. Don't worry about this stuff now. We can always add that later. But so just make a little Excel sheet, row name, material, index, and we are going to make ours it's really going to be 13 by 10. You can customize the size all you want, but for the size that we're going to need, you're going to need 142 rows. So just do 0 to 142. The way you can quickly do that, if we just, why don't I just do this fresh with you guys, is row name, material, index, 01, grab this. I think I said 142. Whoa, too far. So we have 142 rows, and this will also be our index. So just copy this. And for material, just do grass or something for now. I'll show you guys how to add some stuff later. So once you have that done in Excel, wherever you're planning on kind of keeping this, like for me, right, I like that my board game folders, keep all my different projects separated. As long as you only have one tab, this is fine. So first, you go File, Save As, and wherever you want this to go, I already have it, so I'm not going to overdo it, but right, call it Tile, Excel, or whatever. Make sure it's in an Excel workbook. Save, and then you're going to do this again, File, Save As, but this time, call it Tile CSV or something like that. Switch this to, I think it's this one. Yeah. So CSV UTF-8. I already have one. I'm not going to override it, but you just save that. And now you should have, in wherever you saved it, you should have your Excel sheet and your CSV. So open up your CSV and your Excel sheet, and within your CSV, I'll make a new tab just for demonstration, but you would just copy this exactly how it is, paste it, save this, and then close it. And you'll be good to go. And make sure in your CSV, you only have the one tab. I'm going to use what I already have, but this will work fine for you. So I delete this extra one, save this, and I can close this out. And within here, I'm just going to delete this as well because I already have it here. The reason I like to do this in Excel is like I have some notes to myself in here just of where rows begin and end, and what row in depth this is going. And this will make more sense when we actually get back to the manager. But then I can do some Mylar stuff in here too. So like my units will populate off of tables for their stats. I'm going to do a supply thing. So this will be kind of my workbook. And then the actual CSV is what I can import in. So let's come back into Unreal, and we'll do this in assets. So you'll go to Blueprint, Structure. I'll call this like 4v4 map struct. And so now what's important for here, and actually I should have you guys keep your CSV open. So let's reopen it. There we go. So your structure names need to match what your headers are exactly. Now you guys have row name, material, index, I'll have a couple extras. Maybe I'll make a dummy of this and just import it in with this so you guys can see it exactly through. So what we're going to do, we're going to have two members of this structure for now. Row name is always the first one by default, so we don't need to bring that one in. But we'll do our material, and then we will do our index. And the index will be an integer. And let's come back into our folder explorer. I want to do one more thing. We're going to make an enumeration. We'll call this material enum. And actually we'll do tile material enum. So for this is where we'll actually designate what materials we have, and then we'll do a switch to actually set it. We'll just do grass for now. But you can add in whatever. So maybe we can add in some extra ones in here too, like desert and mountain, farm, whatever you want. but we can set those in here. Now when we come back to our structure for this material, tile material, grab this enumeration. Okay, so if you hit browse, this will take you right back to where that's located. So we'll right click, and I think this might be miscellaneous. No. I don't think it's that one. I think it's under blueprints. Give me a sec. Oh yeah, it is. Okay, miscellaneous data table, not the composite data table. Data table. And now we'll pick our structure. We have our 4x4 or 4v4 structure. Okay. We'll call this the 4v4 data table, or maybe map DT for short. So I'm going to come into here and hit re-import. And now it's going to ask you what you want to bring in. So figure out where you put that. So for me, I just have some folders, but tile Excel CSV, hit open, and it should pop right in. Now, my mind will look a little different than yours because my CSV is a little bit different. I'll explain that here in a bit. But if you're having issues, there's either two likely issues. Number one is the information you have in your structure. So the name, so for you guys, you have material and index. It doesn't match exactly what's on your CSV. So, right, if there's a space after this or something, it'll break it. If you spelt index wrong or differently than you spelt it on Unreal Engine, it'll break it. Row name should have no space. So that is likely your problem, number one. And then number two would be your order could be off too. So just make sure exactly what you have in your CSV matches this identically. And if there's an issue, just adjust in here, resave your CSV, and then within your table, just hit re-import. So I made a quick change in mine. I did add my units in. For this part of the tutorial, you don't need to, but if you want to, this is how I did it. This is going to be for spawning the initial units. So again, it matches what's in my CSV exactly. And I added in some different materials into my enumeration. Again, this is all personal, whatever you want your tile materials to look like, edit in here. And then as long as the material in your CSV matches exactly what's in your enumeration, which is being used in your structure, you'll be fine. So after a successful import, you now have all that data table into Unreal Engine. So super easy, really nice. And now we can get back to it. So let's open up our grid manager. And what we're going to do here first is we're going to come into the construction script. So right now, obviously, we don't have any tiles. And that's what we're going to fix. So I'm going to bring this over here, close some of this stuff actually. Leave this, our structure and table and enumeration open. But so the way the construction script works is it's running kind of continuously actually. And it'll populate it in the editor, really kind of pre-launch, pre-begin play. So we're going to do that here so we can actually have a visual representation or looking at it in editor. And then we'll do an actual spawn in game too. So we need a couple variables for this, quite a bit actually. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up how big our space is going to be. So we're going to make a new variable. We're going to make this an integer. And we're going to call this xgrid. And we'll make another one. And we'll call this ygrid. So this is actually going to be the, effectively the dimensions, well, not really dimensions, number of rows and columns. So with how I have mine set up, let me pull this up. Don't worry about it in the code, but we're going 12 by 10. But really, because we'll be using loops, it's going to be one more. So 12 by 10 is really 13 by 11 because it starts at 0. So it goes 0, 1, 2, 3. So when you look at the dimensions of this, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So this is set as an integer of 10, but it's actually giving us 11 tiles. That's because it's starting at 0. So it's going 0, 1, 2, 3. And then on the length of it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So even though I have this set as 12 and 10, you're actually getting one more because of the 0. I hope that makes sense. You can do whatever dimensions you guys want to do for your game, but I'm going to keep it consistent between both of my projects, just so I don't screw anything up. But like for a 2-on-2 map, I'll make that one a little bit smaller. I might even have different 1v1, v1v1 maps that I'll make different sizes too, but this one I'm doing it that way. And that will, if you do the 12 and 10 for your XY grids, that will align perfectly with the CSV we created and will give you 142 individual tiles. So that'll be first, and we'll grab our X grid. So let's pull it out. Make sure you're not setting it. All right, this is what setting it looks like. Just do the git and drag off this and hit or type for loop. So you want this one, for loop. Plug this into here, and this will actually be our last index. So I guess you could actually change this to start on 1 instead of 0, but this is why it gives you that extra. So it's going to do this until we hit index 12, but it starts at 0. So it goes 0 will be 1, and then 1, 2, 3, and it'll do that up to our 12th last index, but it will effectively be 13. If you have more questions on that, or if I'm stuck at explaining it, just ask in the comments. So what this is going to do is it's effectively going to do this 13 times. It's going to do it for all 12 of these plus the first index, which is 0. So it'll make more sense as we go. Next, we'll grab our Y grid. We'll copy the same formula. So each time, grab this, plug this into last index. And then we are going to add a static mesh component. And we're going to split the relative transformation. So this is what's actually going to spawn this tile. And then we need a couple more variables. So next we need, these will be floats. So the variable float, and we will call this spacing X. Another new variable. We will call this spacing Y. So this will set, how far left and right, up and down for a 2-day board like we're making. And then the last one we need is the offset, which will also be a float. And then when we put this together, I think it'll make sense. So for a relative transform location, we're going to drag off this, and we're going to type in select vector. And we are going to split both of these to give us floats. Let me drag this over a little bit. And then what we'll do, so the way for loop works is this is going to run every time until we run the last index. So this will run 13 times, and this will run 11 times. And so each time we do this, we then need to set the spacing, right? So that the tiles are going next to each other and then in front of each other. But because our tiles are 6-sided like this, with these nubs coming out, you can't have them directly go on, let me duplicate this, right? We don't want them like this, obviously. We kind of want them to set like this. So there has to be a spacing to the left, spacing up, and a little bit of an offset. And what the offset does is it just kind of puts it into position. So let's get back And if you followed my dimensions, this will work perfectly if your dimensions within Blender. So you click on this. If these are a little bit different, you might have to just tweak it a little bit, but it's pretty easy to do. So we're going to come off this first index and type in multiply by float. So this is an integer times a float. And we're going to grab our spacing x, grab it here. So each time we spawn a tile or create a tile, right, it'll be index 0. So the first one will be at 0 because 0 times anything will be 0. But then after that, it'll increase. So for our spacing x, we're going to set that to 310. This is what I got to work on my project. Again, if your dimensions are a little bit different, you'll have to tweak it, but I'll show you how to do that. So the first one will come off, will be 0 times 310 will be 0. But the next one will be 1 times 310, 310. Next one will be 2 times 310, 620, right? So that's what will kind of set the spacing. And we'll grab this, we'll plug that in here. And we're also going to come off this index and do divide. Or it's not divide, it is Modelo. So, yeah. It's Modelo, it's called, but it's, actually, I don't even know what this is, but it works. I think this is dividing by 2 is really what this is doing, but nonetheless, it works. Oh, actually, okay, this will return a... Okay, this will return... this is grabbing... It's either an odd or an even row. And so then that will set the offset we need when we go... let me just pull this up. It'll know that this has to be offset in. So, right, we obviously can't go vertical with our tiles, right? They have to be lined up with these, faces here. So on 1, there won't be an offset, but on 2, there will be an offset. And that's what we'll kind of bring it over to the left and right so that the middles meet up. So this identifies if this is a odd or even. And then from there, we can set the proper offsets or offsets. So let me pull this back. Okay, so if this equals 0, so this will either return a 0 or a 1, which then we can identify as basically odd or even, and then does it need the offset or not. So that'll finish this loop. On our next loop, grab this, multiply int by float. And now this will offset by our spacing y. So we'll grab this. This will go here. And this will also come into our next. So what's happening here in this select is it's either going to grab these 3 locations, A or B, and it's going to be set if it's odd or even. And that's what will give us that staggered look like I showed. So when it doesn't need to do that, it'll just do the normal spacing up, and then the offset will kind of set it into position. So let's grab our offset, and we're going to do float plus float. And I'm actually going to put this down the bottom. Doesn't matter, but we're going to drag off this, plug this in here, and then this will go into the BY, and I forgot to put this here. And then we can leave these at 0. So take a look at this. Just make sure you have this right, but spacing X will go into AX and BX, and your spacing Y will go into AY, or if it's picked B, we'll add this offset. And for your spacing Y, set that to 415, and for the offset, set that to 207. Again, you might have to tweak these a little bit, but if your dimensions match mine, you should be good to go. I'm going to do one more thing in here too. I'm going to pull off this set cast shadow. I'm going to have this off. You don't need to do this, but for me, I don't want the tiles casting shadows because you're never going to look under them. And it looks kind of weird when they have shadows because, right, you shouldn't have I guess you can have a shadow in the water, but I think it just kind of looks weird. So I just turn it off, and then I manually turn it on for my tiles that are like the keep or the mine. So there are some shadows, but for like these hills in the desert, I don't need shadows, and you're never going to be looking under it where the main part of the shadow will be. So there's no point to have it, which is why I turn it off. And then for the tiles that I do want to have, I just turn them on later. And then we're going to do one more thing. We have to make another class quick. Not a blueprint, a variable. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click the add static mesh component and promote to a variable. And I'm going to disconnect this. And we'll grab this variable and we're going to rename it to HexTile static. And in this little house in the top right, when you have it selected, switch this to an array. So this grid looking picture, click that for array. And you'll get this error, no problem. Click change. And we're going to drag off this. We're going to get it and delete this. I'm going to pull off it and type in add. So this is what will actually store all the tiles. And drag this in. So now we will add the static mesh and then store it in this table. Okay, so now the fun part, right? Nothing has changed yet, but that's what we're going to do here next. So back in your tile grid manager, under functions, we're going to create a new function. We're going to call this set tiles static mesh. And come back into your construction script and drag that in. And off this second for loop complete, so the Y grid for loop, not this first one, this one, just come up into here. So what this is doing is it's basically setting the dimensions, how many rows and columns we want, and it's going to set the spacing and then add that into an array. But we don't actually have a static mesh attached to it. So technically there's stuff that exists out here, it's just not visible because we haven't assigned this tile to it yet. So that's what we'll do in this function. So off here, into this function. So now is when we're actually going to pull in our data table. So right click and hit get data table row names. So this one, connect these two, and let's grab our table. And off of this, type in for each loop. And then we'll right click get data table row names. And our table again will be the same one. And right click on this. Or not, I think I did the wrong one. We need get data table, not row names. I think it's row. Yes, all right, yep. So get data table row, this one. And then we'll grab our table, plug this in. So what this is doing is it's getting the row names of our CSV, which we imported, and it's doing a loop for every row. So we have, right, all of these rows, 0 to 142. So we'll connect that in here. So that will sync in what row we're looking for, and then it'll push out this data. So you can right click on this little blue wildcard and split this. So now here we can access all the data in our table by the row name. And then what we'll do is we'll get our array that we created, pull off this and hit get copy, and we'll take our row index, which within your CSV is this index. And when we get that, we will then set the static mesh in the material. So set static mesh, and when they find the row, and for now we'll just grab our new tile. And if this worked correctly, boom, you have some tiles. Awesome. So if yours doesn't look kind of perfectly spaced, that's where you got to kind of play around with some of those variables. So what I would do is come back to this while you're looking at it. You can come back into here and change some of these. Maybe we can make this a little bit bigger. I have multiple monitors, so that's how I obviously would prefer to do it, but or not spacing. So as you can see, right, as you change this, you can see how that kind of changes how things are spaced. And, maybe you want a little bit of gap. If I did like 420 and 315, there's some kind of space. Maybe that's something you want. For me, I want them pretty flush. So I'm going to pull this back to how I had it. If it's not kind of lined up like here where they should intersect, that's where your offset would control. Right, so you can see how this is kind of shifting those over. I think I did it at 207. 207 for me, that's what gets it perfectly lined up. But if yours doesn't look good, that's how you can adjust it. And obviously, as you change these, that's what will change these rows. So you could do smaller, bigger. I don't think will work. Yeah, because your table isn't populated. But if you had more data in here past this, then you can make it bigger. So yeah, I think this is probably a pretty good place to stop the part one of the video. I'm sure this one has been super long, so thanks for sticking with me. When we do play, right, it is here, and everything. We're gonna do something a little bit different though. These are static meshes. We're actually gonna do blueprint actors. So this will feel kind of redundant, but the logic behind it is the same for how I'll actually do it in game. But I like to do the static mesh version so I can actually see what I'm looking at. So for me in my active project, I can actually visualize the map and make sure I'm setting it up correctly within my CSV, and then actually populate it as a actor. And the reason we do that is the static mesh doesn't actually have any characteristics. So right now we're just looking at it, but we'll convert this to an actor. And then you can actually have a unit assigned to that actor tile so that everybody knows that unit is on that tile. And for me, I'm going to have like the forest will give extra defense. A desert will give extra offense. Mountains are impassable. Maybe this little keep will have some sort of characteristic. And then, to actually move, you need some individuality within the tiles. So these will be switched over to actors. But we got the base foundation down. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. Hope I did a decent enough job explaining this. And yeah, like and subscribe and leave comments down below if you have questions. I'm going to work to do some videos to get caught back up with my current project. And then as I'm working on my actual project, I'll do some videos showing what I did, how to do it, so you guys can make a fun kind of hex-based board game style type of game. Thanks.